In the last video, we talked about a netizen who kept having terrifying dreams after seeing two girls from the Republican era in his sleep. He tried seeking help from a Taoist priest, but no matter what the priest did, the spirits wouldn't leave. The priest eventually said this was all tied to a karmic debt from his wife's past life, and that it was way too complicated. Only the old master himself could handle it. So, in this episode, we'll pick up where we left off, starting from the moment the master planned to visit Opie's home. As we said goodbye to the elder Taoist master, all we could do was wait for the appointed day to come. In the meantime, we tried reaching out to other spiritual experts, but honestly, we didn't have much luck. Eventually, we got in touch with someone who seemed promising, and here I'll share a screenshot of our chat. Just like the old master, this person also said the situation was way more complicated than I had imagined. He even mentioned that it had escalated to a kind of spiritual conflict between sects. It was only after talking to him that I realized my wife and I both had this dull, unfocused look in our eyes. I couldn't tell if it was just extreme sleep deprivation or the ghosts were starting to mess with our minds. We somehow made it to the second day of the month. That morning, the old master told us in advance to go to the market and buy a live rooster. Not long after, he and his two assistants showed up at our place with all the necessary ritual items. They didn't allow any photos during the process, so unfortunately, I don't have anything to show you visually here. As soon as the three of them entered, they put on their Taoist robes and went straight into the bedroom and told me and my wife to wait in the living room. The bedroom was still in the same eerie state as before, so just one look, they quickly knew what happened before. Then they asked me to take out the rooster we brought. As soon as I let it out of the bag, the rooster flapped its wings a few times and started pecking at the rice we scattered on the ground. Strangely enough, it followed the rice trail all the way to the bedroom door and then suddenly stopped. It just stood there, refusing to take another step forward. The master mixed white liquor and cinnabar into a bowl, then took out a writing brush and dipped in the mixture to draw talismans on yellow paper. Then he asked me and my wife to follow him. As we walked behind him, he began chanting something under his breath. When we got to the bedroom door, he suddenly shouted, "Ch!" and slapped a talisman right onto the door frame. Then he quietly led us back to the living room. There, he told us to go cook something, anything, as long as there was a real flame involved. Meanwhile, the three of them set up a deity statue on the dining table, lit incense and candles, knelt down, and began bowing and ringing bells in front of it for about 5 minutes. Then, I started hearing faint sounds coming from the bedroom, the sound of rice being crushed under footsteps. I peeked inside, but no one was there. The master gave me a quick hush gesture and quietly warned us not to get involved no matter what. I froze, literally didn't dare move a muscle. And then, suddenly, the master looked panicked and yelled, "Stop cooking! Turn off the fire!" They rushed to pack up the statue, blew out the candles, and dragged us out of the house with them. My wife and I were totally confused. What just happened? Were these things so serious even the old master couldn't handle it? Sure enough, once we were downstairs, the master told us flat out. He couldn't help us anymore. This was a case of spiritual creditors, and the debt was huge. If they got too involved, they'd also be pulled into the karmic mess. Fine, another pointless hustle. I forced a bitter smile and said nothing, just handed over the red envelope we had prepared as a thank you gesture, but the master refused to accept it. They said since they weren't able to help, they couldn't take any money. After that, I drove them back to their temple. Before parting, the old master told me he would think it over and give me a call if he found another way. And just like that, I returned to the hotel with a heavy heart. To be honest, I was feeling completely hopeless by then. If they are demanding repayment, what exactly counts as paid in full? Do they want our lives? I read through all the comments and suggestions left by netizens and started searching everything I could about spiritual creditors. Finally, while consulting another master, my wife and I made a decision, one that even now feels totally crazy. Go to Tibet. I figured if Taoism can fix this and it involves reincarnation and karma, then maybe Buddhism could offer an answer, especially Tibetan Buddhism. So I contacted an old Buddhist friend I knew from when I was stationed in Tibet and quickly packed a few things, and the very next day, my wife and I set off for Nanshan County in Lhasa. The trip was over 2,400 kilometers and would take about 5 days, but we decided to drive ourselves for convenience. If this didn't work, I thought, I was ready to head to the northeast and look for the Chumaxian shamans. And if that failed, we'd go to Guangdong and try our luck there. After all, at this point, we had no other choice but to keep going forward. Last night was the best sleep I've had in a while, but even so, I still had a nightmare. It was that same clearing, the same 3 figures, the same altar, and 3 incense sticks stuck upside down into the ground. The only difference this time was that I felt a lot calmer inside. I focused hard on trying to move my toes to break out of the nightmare, and it worked. But when I woke up, I suddenly realized my wife was making those strange murmuring noises again. I quickly reached out and shook her, but no matter how hard I tried, she wouldn't wake up. I turned to switch on the bedside lamp, and that's when I noticed something was wrong. We were supposed to be in Chengdu already, but somehow we were still in our hotel room in Chongqing. That's when it hit me. I was probably still dreaming. This was a dream within a dream. I tried again to wiggle my toes, and after a struggle, I finally woke up for real. Thank God, this time I really was in our Chengdu hotel. Everything was quiet, dawnlight was starting to come through the curtains, and my wife was sleeping peacefully next to me. But after all that, I couldn't fall back asleep. Later that morning, I saw a message from one of the masters. I updated our journey to him and even sent him a quick selfie from our hotel room. Then he asked me, "What color are you wearing?" "Black. Why ask this?" "Black? You should look closely at your eyes." I zoomed in on the photo and my whole body froze. Let me turn up the brightness for everyone here. If you look carefully, you can faintly see 2 figures reflected in my pupils, 2 girls wearing blue, just like the 2 students from my dream. The next day, we finally arrived in Kangding. The weather was decent at first, but that night, while we were still driving around looking for a hotel, a sudden thunderstorm rolled in, lightning and thunder crashing down from the sky, and there, I saw him. In the reflection of the car window, that black Taoist priest from my dream. This time, he wasn't poker-faced. He was staring straight at me with a creepy smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. I felt a jolt of cold run through me and my palms were soaked in sweat. I immediately told my wife what I saw. Then we didn't dare linger, just picked a random hotel and checked in, just in case that black priest might try to mess with us on the road. We finally got settled in. What just happened completely drained me, and I fell asleep soon. But not long after lying down, I started feeling this sharp pain on my scalp, like someone was deliberately yanking my hair. It hurt so much it woke me up. I reached up to scratch my head, only to realize that a small patch of hair had been completely torn out. At that point, neither of us dared to go back to sleep. I ended up calling an old army buddy who's stationed in Xinjiang and asked if there were any trustworthy temples nearby. I feel like if I didn't get some kind of spiritual help soon, that black guy was going to end me. My friend told me there was a temple in the area, rumored to have a living Buddha and to be incredibly spiritually powerful. But it really opens to outsiders. They say there was once a man who knelt and bowed at the temple gate for an entire year, but the temple never opened its doors. So whether we'd even get a chance to enter was a pure luck. I was speechless. But we had come this far, so what else could I say? I just need to give it a shot. We drove along the Qinghai Tibet highway, asking around along the way. And then, pure luck again, we ran into a group of llamas. I jumped out of the car to ask if they knew about this temple. To my surprise, the llama said they come from that very temple. I was thrilled and called my buddy again to help translate my request, and sure enough, the llamas were incredibly kind and brought us straight to the temple. The moment I laid eyes on it, I understood why people said it was powerful. The whole place gleamed like gold. Even the stone floors were covered in gold foil, emanating a strong sense of sacredness. We were let further in and finally met the head lama. I explained everything from start to finish. He listened quietly, then nodded. This is beyond my ability to handle, he said. You are dealing with spiritual creditors. In the end, good and evil will balance out. I cannot interfere. But I do have a dagger. It wards off evil and protects against misfortune. At the very least, it can keep you both alive. At first, I thought he meant to sell it to me. I was already thinking, can I even afford something this valuable? But to my surprise, he shook his head. This is a gift. I believe you and this dagger are fated to cross paths. I hope it serves you well. Later, I learned that this dagger had been passed down through generations in the temple, touched by many of its leaders, and was considered incredibly powerful. Many monks had tried to ask for it before, but the head lamas always refused, until now. To be honest, I was overwhelmed and felt bad accepting it for free. So finally, I made a donation to the temple as a thank you offering. So, even Buddhism couldn't solve my problem. After discussing it with my wife, we decided not to waste any more time here. On top of that, my wife was experiencing severe altitude sickness, so we packed up and once again hit the road. Although Taoism and Buddhism didn't seem to help us, it felt like heaven hadn't completely blocked our path. On our way back, I received a call from a friend who said he knew a master in Yinchuan who specialized in dealing with such matters. Since we had already come this far, he suggested we try asking him for help. So, no hesitation, my wife and I drove 1,500 kilometers and headed straight for the master's house. This master was an elderly man, renowned for handling such matters, not just in the village, but throughout the entire province. Once seated, he gave me a bowl of water, then told me to drink a third of it, pour out another third, and leave the remaining water as an offering in front of the incense burner. Afterward, he took a talisman, walked to a tree near the door, and burned it. Later, he instructed me to lie down, close my eyes, and try to sleep. Even if I couldn't fall asleep, I should never open my eyes. I did as he asked, and then I heard him bring something to gently swipe over my body. Soon, I heard the soft rustle of paper being folded. Then, I felt him place the folded pieces on my shoulders, one on each side. A moment later, he began chanting, and the world around me slowly faded into an eerie silence, as if I had slipped into another dimension where no one else existed. This continued for about half an hour, and then I felt the paper on my shoulders had been torn off. At that time, the master woke me up and asked me to touch my forehead 3 times. When I opened my eyes, I saw the master was panting heavily. Seemed like this spiritual work had taken a toll on him. He then asked the usual question, whether we had offended anyone, to which we naturally denied. Then he told me that the 2 girls I had seen in my dreams were actually 2 students who had committed suicide, one named Zhou and the other named Xie, who died in 1914 and 1924, respectively. Because it was a time of war, they had died far from home, and their bodies had not been properly handled, causing their souls to wander without a place to return to. However, after wandering for over 20 years, they encountered the Yin Master, the black-robed Taoist I had seen in my dream, and were captured by him. And that was the story among them. But unfortunately, although the master understood the cause of the issue, he couldn't solve it. By this point, I was numb inside. When I tried to pay the master for his services, he only asked for 7 yuan, $1. It's worth mentioning that during this time, I also told the master about the experience of my scalp being pulled. The master took a look and noticed that's not just a bald spot, but also some swelling. He explained that it was caused by the ghost trying to harm me. He suggested I visit a hospital to have the swelling removed, otherwise it would continue to grow very quickly. One thing after another. We immediately returned to Chongqing, and after a hospital checkup, we learned that it was a benign tumor, which could be removed easily. But this gave me a chilling feeling. In just a few days, a tumor had grown on my head. It seemed that this issue had to be resolved quickly, or my life might truly be at risk. At this point, the events we had gone through had spread among our friends, and everyone started recommending various masters to me. Eventually, we ended up in Liupanshui, Guizhou province. A friend told me about an old man there, a successor of the Longhu Mountain Taoist tradition, who had even participated in the World War II. When I heard this, I lost all hope. Just think about it. This master had gone through the war, and now he must be nearly 100 years old. Whether he could even stand up was questionable. In the end, I arrived at the master's house. I greeted him loudly, but to my surprise, he turned around and said, "Don't shouting so loud, I'm not deaf." Hearing this, my nerves finally relaxed. It seemed the master was not as frail as I had imagined, and probably had some real skill. After hearing the full story, the master asked me to go to a nearby farmer's market and buy a gourd. Then he handed me a pen and told me to doodle on it. I wrote the character 鬼, ghost, and scribbled a few other strokes. After that, the master took the gourd and began performing a ritual. The process was incredibly simple. Before I could even figure out what was happening, the old man picked up the gourd and said, "Done, it's all settled." Huh? Is that simple? This ghost is too weak. It didn't take much effort. I didn't even get to have my fun. I was curious, so I asked why, what happened to us. The master explained, "This isn't about karma at all. The issue lies with that black-robed Taoist. The black Taoist isn't a ghost. It's something called Zhan." The master wrote a character for me. It was a Zhan cut on top and a Gui, ghost, at the bottom. It turns out that Zhan is what a ghost becomes after dying again. Normally, when people die, they become ghosts. But if a ghost gains enough power through cultivation and then dies once more, it transforms into something called Zhan, also known as a yin master. After becoming a Zhan, the black priest continued his cultivation and ended up trapping the two girls. As for them, the old master gave me the same explanation as the previous one. They had committed suicide and, with no one to bury them, their souls wandered the world. Eventually, they ran into the black Taoist and were trapped by him. But the girls weren't malicious. They were just being used, forced to help the Zhan take other people's lives like ours. Fortunately, the old master finally managed to trap the Zhan inside the gourd, and the two girls were finally freed. When talking about this, I suddenly remembered when I first saw them, they had asked me how to get Xincheng. I asked the master about it, and he replied, "Oh, Xincheng, I know it. This place used to be called Xincheng during the Republican era, and later it was renamed." At that moment, it all made sense. The two girls in my dreams had been trying to remind me to come to Xincheng. They must have been suffering from being trapped, so they asked me to find the old master to help them get released. But we had misunderstood everything along the way and ended up traveling across most of China, wasting nearly a month of time. In the end, the master didn't charge us anything. He said this was a minor matter and wasn't worth mentioning. The reason we had taken so many detours was simply because the Zhan is extremely rare. Even experienced priests might not have encountered it, so naturally, they couldn't have helped us. But once its nature was understood, it was easy to deal with. Feeling that we owed him, the master sighed and said that His son had passed away young, but had left him with a grandson, who was currently studying at Chongqing University of Posts and Telecommunications. Now, the master was old and hoped that one day, when he was gone, Wei would take care of his grandson. Of course, I agreed, telling him that I would look after the boy until he got married and started his own family. Later, at the master's request, we stayed at his place for 49 days. During that time, we took turns keeping watch and making sure the incense in front of the gourd never went out. Eventually, as expected, the nightmare ended. We no longer saw any ghostly faces, and life returned to peace. This matter, which had started in Chongqing, also ended there, forming a perfect and magical circle. And that's where the OP story ends. I later heard that the couple moved abroad. For some reason, they've completely vanished from the internet. My guess, maybe their birth charts are just different. Maybe that's why they caught the attention of the Zhan. Kinda like the OP from the black and white house story we talked about before. So perhaps they moved overseas to avoid encountering anything like that ever again. But there's one detail worth mentioning. OP once drew a fortune stick at the Laojundong temple, right? And the result read, Zhongkui attains the power. Could that have been a sign? After all, Zhongkui is a powerful figure in Chinese folklore. Or should I say, a powerful ghost. He's known for slaying demons and evil spirits. When Zhongkui was alive, he was a righteous, strong-willed man. After his death, he became a ghost and, through cultivation, gained supernatural powers. Then he dedicated himself to hunting down demons and protecting people. Eventually, people began honoring him as the demon-slaying lord and hung his portrait above their doors to keep evil spirits away. So, looking at it this way, Zhongkui is a kind of Zhan too, but he's a righteous one, while the one OP encountered wasn't. Also, in the first part of the story, when OP first met the old Taoist master, he was given a talisman made of peachwood. Some viewers said that's called a Ziwei charm, a kind of warding charm. Interestingly, the character on it looks a lot like the character for Zhan. Maybe that was another sign? A hidden clue? What do you think? Anyway, that's the full story from start to finish. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. In the next episode, we'll head deep into Miao territory, a mysterious land full of jaw-dropping tales. Trust me, you won't want to miss it.